Good morning, everyone, and welcome to yet another special edition of Business World Insights. My name is Santiago Hernandez, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's discussion on the women at the front lines of our business battlefields, presented by P&A Grant Thornton and McDonald's Philippines. According to the Harvard Business Review, companies with more women in senior positions are more profitable, more socially responsible, and provide safer, higher quality customer experiences, among many other benefits. Now, the latest Women in Business report published by Grant Thornton International revealed that the Philippines ranks first globally in terms of women in leadership positions. Today, we ask, how are the women leading our corporate communities winning their battles in and beyond the boardroom? As we continue to celebrate powerful women today, I'm humbled to be joined by a number of corporate heroes to share insights from their journeys as female leaders. We'll be hearing from each speaker one by one before diving into a free-flowing panel conversation. But before we call them on screen, just a reminder to our audience that we'll be taking questions later during the Q&A. So be sure to send them in the comments, which our team will be monitoring. Now, without further ado, let's jump right in with our guests for today. Our first speaker is the Chairperson and Chief Executive Officer of Punong Bayan and Araulio, a member firm within Grant Thornton International and one of the Philippines' leading professional services firms providing audit, accounting, advisory, and tax services. Our speaker is a Philippine certified public accountant, a certified management accountant in Australia, an associate certified coach of the International Coach Federation, and a fellow of the Institute of Corporate Directors. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Ms. Maria Victoria C. Españo. Marivic, you have the screen.
Thank you, Tiago, and good morning, Tiago, and to my co-speakers, Ms. Campos and Ms. Hernandez. Well, first of all, I would like to thank Business World for inviting P&A Grant Thornton to this event and for giving us the opportunity to share the results of the 2022 Women in Business Report. As the business community may be aware, P&A Grant Thornton has been conducting these annual surveys since 2004, since we strongly believe that gender diversity is going to be a significant factor that businesses must consider in their long-term plans. The 2022 report covers the results of the survey conducted in 2021, which covered more than 4,000 mid-market businesses in 29 countries globally. In the report, we see that in the Philippines, 39% of the senior leadership roles are held by women. Globally, the Philippines ranks fourth following South Africa, Turkey, and Malaysia. The percentage globally is 32%, while in APAC, it is 30%. While we saw a decline in the percentage of women in senior leadership role in the Philippines, from 48% in 2020 to 39% in 2021, we are still glad because we are seeing that the Philippine businesses continue to support inclusivity and promote gender parity in the workplace, even during the times of the pandemic. In fact, if you look at the 3-year moving average from 2019 to 2021, for the Philippines, the 3-year average is 43%, which is significantly higher than the global 3-year moving average of 31%. Now, if you use this moving average as basis, the Philippines is on top of the list among the 29 countries surveyed. With regard to businesses without women in senior leadership role, only 6% of the business surveyed were in such situation in 2021. So that's really a small number. In terms of the type of leadership roles played by women in the Philippines, most of the positions showed a decline in the percentage of women, but we saw that there was an increase in the number of women holding the Chief Financial Officer position and the Chief Marketing Officer position. That's really remarkable. Now, when we deep dive into the results of the survey and analyze it further in relation to what's really happening in the country, we believe that the decline in the number of women holding senior roles can be explained by the fact that women leaders in our country are usually found in industries that were most affected by the pandemic. This included tourism, hotels and entertainment, media, education, and other personal services. Moreover, the changes in the situation at home, in my personal view, most likely was a factor that caused this decline. During the pandemic, we observed women who had support from relatives and kasambahay that lost this particular support. Most of their relatives or kasambahay went home to their provinces, maybe due to the fear of the high infection rate in the urban areas, or they probably needed to take care of their own families. In addition, the situation of children changed. Since classes were conducted virtually, the children needed the support of their parents to cope under this new learning environment. And usually, it is the mother who takes on this role. This notwithstanding, we find comfort to see that businesses responded during the pandemic to support their employees. The research report shows that 62% of the respondents from the Philippines saw their companies instilling new working practices to better engage all employees. And this included virtual and flexible working arrangements. And we are confident that as we slowly emerge from the pandemic, we believe that women will thrive well in a hybrid work environment. The respondents in the survey said about 22% of them strongly believe that these changes will promote better career opportunities for women in the long term. Those are the highlights of the report, Tiago. I look forward to the engaging discussions later.
Thank you very much for that. I found your insight on women in leadership positions being clustered in very specific industries really compelling. I'd love to dive a bit further into that later during the Q&A. But before that, let's welcome our second speaker for the panel. Our second speaker is the Philippines and Malaysia country head and senior delivery leader of Infosys BPM, a delivery center of Infosys BPM, the business process management subsidiary of Infosys Limited, which provides end-to-end transformative digital BPM services, business consulting, and technology solutions for global enterprises. As a member of Infosys BPM's Leadership Council, our second speaker champions diversity, equity, and inclusion, leading her company's DEI efforts towards increasing their women leadership ratio. As a member of the Filipino CEO Circle, she leads a program called RISE, a mentorship program for college students to prepare them for the workforce. And she was named in 2014 as one of the most influential Filipino builders in the world by the Filipino Women's Network. And she sits on the board of directors of CCAP as well as the board of trustees at IBPAP. Please welcome Ms. Maria Rodora Campos. Ai, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chago. Good morning. I'm sorry I greeted all of you good afternoon because my time zone is usually afternoon, but good morning, everybody. And hi to our lovely speakers, Ms. Españo and Ms. Hernandez. So I'm very, very glad to be here today. Just to share with you a bit of my perspective, and I did some research also. So between 1997 and 2017, firms with at least one female director or executive officer consistently reported larger profit margins. For firms with female directors, the advantage has been consistent across the sample period, but the trend became more pronounced for companies with women executive officers. So women leaders could improve company performance in multiple ways. Greater cognitive and skills diversity amongst the company leadership has been proven to improve overall organizational performance. Women in senior leadership positions can serve as role models and help motivate women to want to be more. And firms practicing the principles of equal employment opportunity will be able to create workplace gender equality. The Peterson Institute for International Economics completed a survey of 21,980 firms from 91 countries and found that having women at the C-suite level significantly increases net margins. A profitable firm at which 30% of leaders are women would expect to add more than 1 percentage point to its net margin compared with an otherwise similar firm with no female leaders. The report notes. By way of comparison, the typical profitable firm in our sample had a net profit margin of 6.4%. So a 1 percentage point increase represents 15% boost to profitability. The benefits of diversity are evident. Having female senior leaders creates less gender discrimination in recruitment, promotion, and retention. That gives a company a better chance of hiring and keeping the most qualified people. So why does gender diversity in the C-suite seem to make a difference in the company's performance? That's always the question. The causation is still not entirely clear, although studies agree that introducing new voice into management roles can bring a fresh perspective and will definitely create a genius. One thing is for sure, there are drivers, both environmental and personal, controllables and uncontrollables that need to be addressed. This is to ensure that gender equality will be present in organizations at large. Back to you, Tiago.
Thank you very much, Ai. I'd love to dive in your what I understand to be your personal advocacy for empowering young women in the workplace a bit later during the Q&A. Now, rounding off our panel today is our third speaker. Our speaker joined McDonald's Philippines in 2011 as the head of the PR and communications team. Today, she serves as the company's corporate relations director, responsible for the company and brand's reputation management across its different stakeholders: customers, employees, owner-operators, partners, and industry organizations. In addition to this expansive role, she also leads the government relations and sustainability cross-functional team. Everyone, please welcome Ms. Adi Timbal Hernandez.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. So thank you for having me today. It's great to be amongst fabulous women who spoke before me. I'd like to start by sharing that at McDonald's Philippines, we're one of the McDonald's markets all over the globe that has achieved or even exceeded our goals for women in leadership positions. Just to share off where we are today, so 60% of our restaurant managers in over 670 locations nationwide are composed of women. And in the boardroom, 5 out of our 9 executive leaders, that includes already the owner, are women. And in the senior management position, 11 out of the 19 are women. So we are very proud that from the boardroom down to our restaurants, women at McDonald's are empowered. And I would like to echo what the previous speakers have shared about the importance of inclusivity and non-discrimination across the entire employment journey. So it really starts with recruitment, and it will flow through talent development and mentorship, and will lead towards leadership positions. So we believe in McDonald's that it is important to become gender neutral across all stages in the employee life cycle to ensure that there's equal opportunity for everyone. Because when everyone is allowed to lead and to grow, women flourish and therefore support more women leaders. I am a proud example of it. So I've been with McDonald's for the past 11 years, and I'm a mother of 2 young children. So actually, a few minutes before I started speaking, my daughter was beside me because it's ongoing. Today is work from home day, and therefore I also double as teacher. And at McDonald's Philippines, we are supported and they understand the roles and the challenges given of women. So I think this is something that we all have a role to play in as women leaders, that we continue to empower and to support all women in the workplace in order for us to really achieve and exceed our targets and really grow the business profitably and sustainably. So looking forward to a more robust discussion later on. So thank you, everyone.
And thank you as well, Adi. Now, if I can invite all our speakers back on screen with me for our panel discussion. Hello, everyone. So I'd like to keep this section of our session flowing. So please feel free to jump in at any point with any insights or comments you might have. I have a couple questions prepared on my end, and we'll also be pulling questions from the audience. So at least for this first question, I'd like to direct it to Marivic. You touched on this earlier, but I'm hoping we can begin with some context. So expanding on how the Philippines compares to the region and to the world in terms of women in leadership. So you mentioned that the Philippines is at the lead here in many ways, even growing across different types of leadership, which is amazing to hear. I thought your insight that women in leadership positions are highly clustered in specific industries was particularly interesting. So maybe could you expound a bit on that? How can we position our business community to be more resilient in regards to diversity and inclusion?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Tiago, you would see that during the pandemic, and probably even today, even up to this time, there are industries that continue to be affected by the situation. We're good that we're already in level one, but businesses still have to go back to the full level of operations. And the industries that were affected were entertainment, tourism, education continues to be there. We know that enrollment in schools haven't gone to the normal levels that we saw before the pandemic. And these are the industries where we have a lot of women workers because the work that they do are really, I guess, done best by women, if I may use that term. These are, when we talk about services, women thrive in that particular area. Because primarily of their ability to connect well with customers, connect well with the people that they work with, and therefore, when you look at the difficult times that we've had in the past 2 years, we've seen businesses close, and accordingly, there were opportunities that women leaders lost in those particular industries.
Absolutely. Addy, anything you'd like to add there in regards to how we can maybe ensure that our ecosystems are more resilient and that women aren't don't carry the brunt of the burden when insofar as the pandemic related effects have been concerned?
Yeah, Thiago, I can add a little bit more context. No? Actually, it's very sad, no, that despite many studies proving the positive impact of women taking, management roles, but the number still remains very low, and that's really driven by various, drivers or factors. Some of them are personal, some of them are environmental. Environmental, again, it's the pandemic. No, I think if we had a very good pandemic response, then that could have been at least mitigated. No, but because our response is not maybe as how other countries would have done it. It really affected livelihood of everyone. Now, for women working at home, on the personal front, I think women has always been known to be the homemaker. We care for the family. When you're home, you're expected to do the chores. And so even during the time that you're working from home, there is an expectation from the rest of the family that you're home. You have to cook, you have to wash the dishes, you have to care for the family. So I think it's very, very important that dialogue happens, within the family members to set the expectations that yes, I'm home, but I'm also expected to perform my duties, and I'm working to make sure I deliver the expectations. So I think the dialogue amongst family members, ensuring that there's equality even between the husband and the wives, is very, very important.
Absolutely. And Addy, I wanted to do a follow-up question, but Addy, is there anything that you wanted to add in that regard?
Well, 100% with what Miss Campos said, that it's really important that there's shared accountability in home care, especially if the woman is also working. And aside from the communication with the husband and the agreements done in the household, it's important that also women are supported and that they do have a support system outside of the home to ensure that they're effective in both roles, both at their home as a wife or mother, and of course their role as an executive or as a leader in a company.
So I do really want to double down on this insight. So over the last few years, our lifestyles have clearly significantly shifted, right? Everyone in our families, primarily in the family life, right? So everyone at home, working, studying, all in the same place. Adi, you were mentioning your daughter was with you just 15 minutes ago. So with women still carrying a disproportionate amount of the work that goes into managing the home, do you have any other insights on the ways the pandemic has impacted the employment and career development of women executives?
Well, I think in terms of career development, there has been a challenge of time management. I think first and foremost, it's not because opportunity is not open for them. In fact, there's an entire industry that opened. It's the online or the digital selling, but the barrier becomes really the time management because of all the roles that the woman or the mom has to play. So I would say it's not the lack of opportunity, but really the lack of the opportunity to maximize the said opportunity, and that really boils down to everything that a wife or mother is supposed to do, and that's something we need to improve on as a society, whether it's terms of expectation or support.
Yeah.
Tiago, I'd like to say that the past 2 years has allowed businesses to see that things, work can be done differently. And my hope is that even if it's safe now for people to go back to office, we would not just simply go back to the old normal and forget the lessons that we learned. No? There's an opportunity to do things really differently, and I like most companies have done this virtual kind of setup instead of going to the office to have face-to-face meetings. They're now doing it virtually. Training programs are done virtually. Companies have also completed online training programs that can be done at any time by the employees. It doesn't have to be taken during the 8 to 5 normal. So these are practices that were introduced in the last 2 years. In some countries, they've actually been doing it for several years, but Philippines was, somehow forced to adopt to this. And I hope that businesses will continue to consider this, because that would really address the challenges that women face in balancing their personal needs and the requirements in the office.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree with both Mrs. Pine and Ms. Hernandez. So just maybe for example, no, in our organization, we've made learning and development really agile, not to meet the needs of all of the employees, not only women. So the programs are available online, available on their cell phones, so that they can go through those programs and help them build their skills and competencies. But at the same time, to Ms. Hernandez's point, sometimes the take up is also low, even if the facility is available, just again because of the expectations by the entire household from the mother who's working from home. So what we had thought, what we had, taught our teams is to have that dialogue. So for example, I'll give you my example. During the first few months of the pandemic, I also struggled, no, because I sit in the sala, they see me, so I feel guilty, so I would go and wash the dishes. But at some point, I had to talk to them. I had to sit them all down. So my husband and my children, I had to tell them, guys, yes, I'm home, but please remember that mommy is working. So I did a rebound and had really went back to my routine in the office. So my only difference now is the workplace. But from then on, everybody knew I'm working, so they don't bother me already. So I'm able to concentrate. If I have to attend training, I'm able to attend training. And so the same things we advise all of our members, our team members to do the same, have a conversation, and set expectations with everybody at home. And since then, the take up also went high.
So, I mean, clearly there are a number of challenges and pressures that women in leadership positions face, right? So challenges that their male counterparts or maybe the men in their lives don't often even recognize. So from the rest of the panel as well, do you have any insights you'd like to share on how best to rise to those challenges?
Maybe I'll take on the question. I think it starts really with communication, and talking to everyone that's part of your daily ecosystem on how to best manage the situation. Because if you don't say what you need, and there's also this social, I think it's embedded in our culture, wherein the woman is silent. She doesn't, because she's expected to be this, do that, she would not speak up in for one reason or another. So I guess it's really important to have that dialogue. And then I mentioned earlier support. But to be more specific, especially in the workplace, I cannot underscore the importance of coaching and mentorship. And usually, looking or being mentored by a fellow woman leader uh, is really, really great in building up the confidence and the skills of fellow women. So I think that's another thing that would really help women grow in the workplace and also in their personal lives. Communication and mentorship.
I would like to add on that. Coaching is really an important part of the learning and development that companies must consider for their employees. I think, as pointed out earlier, sometimes you're just simply overwhelmed with what has to be done, and through coaching conversations, you would the objective would be to help you understand the environment and be mindful of all these challenges that you're facing and the possible solutions that you could really take, rather than just being swept by all these things that are happening to you. In our firm, likewise, we strongly support mentoring, because as we see other women being able to achieve these challenges in their lives, and um, able to excel well in their work, we know that our employees feel better and feel, I guess, more empowered, because they see that it can be done.
Yeah. Yeah. So also, I just want to share, at Infosys, we created a women's network. It's called Infitinat, right? So all the women employees of Infosys are members of that. And, we have a lot of initiatives that enables us to help them be empowered. So in terms of preparation, communication, we encourage them to speak up. We encourage them not to wait to be invited. We encourage them to pull up their own chair and, to sit and speak. So we have a lot of programs trying to build their courage, to be able to really walk in front and, be able to speak up. We have, mentoring programs, coaching and mentoring programs. We've identified a set of high potential leaders that goes through a separate program, and there's a separate program for the rest of all the women. So that runs in parallel, because we need to ensure also that our succession planning process focuses also on high potential, so we can really build our internal talents, not to grow within the organization and be able to also secure all those future leadership positions as we are growing the organization. So I think a lot of that, we bring in external speakers to inspire. We bring in, additional role models into the picture, so that they only don't see, the leaders within the org, but they are also getting exposed to other leaders from other industries and other practices that can inspire them, that they can be more as a woman. Now, another area that I'm very, very passionate about is the schools, no? I think we need to start them young, no? We need to start the women young. And so our program in FCC that I lead is called RISE. So we have a partner university that we coach. This is already on the second round. Now, we coach third-year college students to prepare them for the internship and eventually for the workforce. And it's a four session coaching session. It's coachee led, and then the coach is just really supposed to really help the coachee discover, his talents, his skills, his potential, her potential rather, and be able also to identify areas that she needs to work on with the help of the coach. And our first round was very, very successful, and so the school requested for another round, and we intend to scale this. Currently, we only have one partnership with one school, but moving forward, we're looking at scaling this also. And we're looking at also expanding it not only in schools, but also, in corporates.
And really see that follow through from the school to the workplace as well. Fantastic. Adi, you touched on the nuance of culture earlier. When we define leadership, the qualities that we celebrate in leaders, it's often the case that these qualities are only celebrated when they're exhibited by the men in the workplace. So, for example, assertiveness can be celebrated in men while being a negative trait in women. And similarly, being a team player might be celebrated in women, but not always highlighted as a trait that marks them as a strong leader. So maybe this is just a question pulling from your personal experiences. How have you navigated those types of double standards in your careers?
Well, personally, I think I'm in a position of privilege having not gone through that because of our company culture. Leaders in McDonald's, the female leaders, they lead fields wherein it is typical for men. So an example would be our head of business development, that builds all our stores, is a woman, which that's typically a job or a career for a man. And we also have another one who heads our digital and technology department. Again, that's another role that was meant, or at least stereotypically assigned to a man, but a woman at McDonald's did that. So I think I'm speaking from a position of privilege, not having to go through that. But what I would say is that, sorry, my daughter, my daughter came again. Okay, so okay, I lost my thought. Okay, going back. So I think what would work is really to practice having the spirit of meritocracy, and that you get to a certain position, or you get assigned a certain project or job, not because you're a man or you're a woman, but because you're best qualified. And I think that's the culture that companies should really imbibe, and that goes the same. I mean, if it's a role typically suited for women, but the man is most qualified, then why shouldn't the man be able to do it? So again, it's about gender neutrality and meritocracy, a company culture.
That's an interesting observation, Tiago. When I was growing up, maybe it's the generation or something. I still remember my mom telling me not to join conversation of the elderly members of our family because because we're young, and maybe because I'm a woman. But I think as we see or join organizations where speaking up, as pointed out by Ms. Campos earlier, is encouraged, where companies adopt an open door policy such that employees feel that it's all right for them to voice out their opinion, their comments, and the company enables that process through different ways, no? Either debriefing sessions, town hall meetings. All these practices will really encourage our employees, including women, to come out and and feel that their opinion are important. I think that's the most important one, having that environment, because not even if you teach them this in training programs, but they don't actually see it. They don't actually feel that they're part of an environment where speaking out is encouraged, then it's not going to happen.
We need to create a safe space, right? For our employees, everybody, men, women, LGBTQ. So they need to feel that the organization that they're part of is a safe space or a safe place for them, so that they can be them. They can be their authentic selves without, you know, pretending to be another. You're a woman, you don't need to be like men, right? You need to nurture your your qualities as a woman, and show that you can deliver, without prejudice, or we have to take away stereotypes and the biases. So we need to encourage authentic selves to be present in the organization. So I attended a school program a couple of months ago, and the professor was talking about diversity, and there were so many examples that were shared to us, and really, cognitive diversity is one of the most important drivers to organizational success. And you can only have cognitive diversity if everybody feels it's a safe place that they can speak without being judged, and there's no right or wrong in any opinion. I think that's going to be very, very important.
Absolutely. I understand empowering young professionals is a personal advocacy of yours with Rise. And Adi and Marivic, you also really underscored the importance of that coaching and mentorship earlier as well. What advice can you share with women charting their own professional career paths today?
You know what? So first, I always talk about this with my coaches, yeah, with my student coaches, because they would always ask, are there any, secrets, or, what have helped you? So I always talk to them about, 4 or 5 words. That's, I think, very, very important. So one is, integrity. You need to make sure and keep your integrity intact as you go through your journey as a person and as a leader. You keep doing the right thing even when no one is looking. That's very, very important. Courage is very important, especially for women. Tapang ng loob, I'm not saying we don't have fears. We have fears. We're human beings. But taking the courage to overcome the fear, sometimes making that leap of faith, is going to be very, very important. And it actually makes a lot of difference. No, you make a decision, okay, mahirap to, takot ako, gagawin ko siya. That makes a lot of difference. Grit, is also very important. The relentless perseverance, You fail, yes, but you stand up. Parang grit and growth mindset combined. You fail, but you fail fast. You acknowledge that you don't know everything, but you can learn and you can be better. I think that's very important. And you are relentless to trying to achieve what you need to achieve and beyond. And faith is very important to me. I think when everything else fails, I go, my last resort is really, help me, because, this is maybe beyond human capacity already. And of course, purpose. It's very important. We need to know our whys. At the end of the day, why are we doing all of this? Why do we need to empower women? Why do we need to work so hard? Why do we need to have long nights? And why do we need to do all of this? So it needs to be very, very clear, because if that is clear, you won't get tired because you have a bigger purpose, and it's not myopic view, but it's a grander view. So that's from me.
Well, that's a very good
Okay.
point. Yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes they look for the end goal, right? How do I become successful? But the definition of success is different for everyone. And as pointed out by Ms. Campos, it depends on what will make you happy, what would serve your purpose more. And there's no clear path that would lead you to that. And I believe that, the learning mindset would help a lot. If you feel that every opportunity that comes your way can be a learning opportunity, then you would welcome them and you will show up, right? If you feel that I'm going to learn something from this event, I'm going to, you know, meet somebody new whom I can learn from, then the next step that is needed from you is to show up. But if you don't, then you're letting go of that opportunity to learn.
Yeah, I love what Ms. Españo said about showing up, because that's exactly in the corporate setting. It's not about fighting your way to a seat at the table. There are seats at the table open, but it's what you do at the seat that will really matter, that will define you. Because it's not enough that you have that seat. You have to keep your seat, and that really comes with hard work. What Ms. Campos said earlier, I love it. Grit, being unrelentless, and maybe to add to what they said, it's time for women to stop being unapologetic for wanting to be certain things, for wanting to do other things. It's not hindi kabawasan sa isang babae kung gusto niyang umakyat sa corporate ladder or gusto niyang maging matagumpay sa negosyo. It doesn't mean inuna niya yung kanyang trabaho versus sa kanyang pamilya, and vice versa. If the woman decides she wants to be a homemaker, it doesn't mean wala din siyang self-worth kasi hindi siya nagtatrabaho. So I guess it's just that time that we stop apologizing for our choices, because at the end of the day, we're all women and we know our purpose, and we're gonna fight tooth and nail to achieve that purpose and achieve that goal.
Incredibly inspiring. We have a lot of questions coming in from the audience now, but perhaps to get ahead of those questions, I just wanted to ask a question of my own. We often tell women how to better tailor themselves, empower themselves to navigate the workplace. But perhaps maybe we can flip that question. What can men in the workplace, specifically men in leadership positions, do to better support their coworkers and their careers so that women don't have to be working twice or thrice as hard to get just as far?
So Tiago, I'll take a quick stab. So, and I like the question because I think we need to ensure that when we talk about women leadership or women empowerment, diversity, men needs to be part of the conversation. They cannot be on the sidelines. They need to participate in the conversation. So for men, I think one, they need to acknowledge that there are women in the workplace that can do the same work that they can do, right? That there's no difference. It needs to be genderless. No, they need to really take away the bias. Now, this is better for man or for men because the previous successful person that have done this role is a man. So I think we need to take out those biases. I think for men leaders in the organization, we also need to acknowledge that as women, there are certain difference in terms of responsibilities as they go through the journey in their lives, right? So they will have a career, yes, but they will get married, they will have children. So the organization need to be empowered to adjust and to allow for those for those changes that could happen when women actually go through their journey as women, right? So create policies that are customized to allow so that women don't need to resign, right? So if there are meetings, for example, that happens in the evening, we can be more sensitive and schedule the meetings before 5 p.m. so that women can go home and they can perform their duties as mother. So I think there's a lot of adjustments that can be done in policies, procedures, norms and disciplines within the organizations. And again, the women cannot force it alone. The men needs to take, take leadership in making sure that happens for women. And in so doing, there's going to be equality in the workplace.
100% agree. I think it starts with men being more intentional in knowing and understanding the needs of women, and then for the company to have really policies that are yeah, I'd use the word again, intentional to address the needs of women. But I think the other point to add on how men can, be supportive of gender equality is really through collaboration. Because when they collaborate with women, instead of, they assign or just think, or, we work on our own, that's really where the understanding and the appreciation would come in, especially in the workplace. So being intentional and again really collaboration.
I like the word intentional. I would say that there are things that there are conscious and unconscious biases that are happening in the workplace. We talk about conscious biases, I would say that there are some projects or assignments that are not being given to women because sometimes, and I don't know if men are aware of this. They try to protect women, uh, but in a positive way, but unconsciously are not giving them the opportunity to learn from these roles. So, for instance, if a particular project is going to be, it's an interesting project, but it has to be done uh, immediately and it would require overtime work. So men may think that, okay, let's not involve her even if she's good, because that would mean taking away time from her family and she would have to work overnight, right? But if you look at it, that's an excellent opportunity for her to take on a very interesting project. But because of that unconscious bias, um, you leave her out from that opportunity. A second would be probably defining certain roles to be suitable for men and not women. Again, that's um, maybe not intended to be negative, but it does happen. And I would like to point out that in reality, women need men to promote women, right? So one has to be conscious that if men don't, hold activities with their women employees, they don't actually have, they lose the opportunity to learn about these people. Uh, I remember a particular survey that we conducted in the office, and one comment made was that, the male leaders were having social activities with the male managers and not the female managers, right? So when it comes, if you think about it, it doesn't sound bad, but if you think about it, come promotion time, they know more about the male candidates versus the female candidates. Maybe they know them equally from a professional perspective, but the other side of their personalities would be, I guess, unknown to the male leaders. So those are the kind of situations that can be actually addressed.
These are like drinks after work or rounds of golf, maybe. Absolutely. A lot of the insights today have highlighted the power of systems level solutions to champion diversity and inclusion, right? So intentional allyship is important, yes. We also need operational and support systems in place to create a flatter, more equal playing field. I think that's a fantastic insight from the panel. I want to make sure that we have time to touch on the audience questions here. So maybe we can take some quick stabs at this first question from John Rick Tankpos, who asks, women often resign from work to focus on their children. By the time they're ready to start working again, maybe there's a huge gap on their resume already. So if John doesn't mind, I'd like to frame this question as, what can the stakeholders involved here do to better support women returning to the workforce and aiming for leadership positions?
So,
That's a great question. Well, maybe yeah, Doctor, Mrs. Españo, you can go ahead.
I think it's Miss Campos who was
Yeah.
Oh,
going
Miss
to.
Campos, sorry,
No,
Miss
no, it's all
Campos.
right. It's all right, Addy. No, just
Yes.
just to share, no, at Infosys actually we have a program called Back to Work, and that's really targeted to women employees that have left our workforce to come back, and we have programs to support them to get them up to speed so that they be ready. And this program, we're currently expanding this to accommodate not only those who have resigned from Infosys, but generally those who have resigned from the workforce, or OFWs that came back to the Philippines and didn't find a job the last 2 years. So we have those programs, and they will have a training curriculum that they need to complete, so that they can be better prepared when they hit the workforce. And this is a very successful program that's been implemented first in India in our corporate office. But the support system needs to be there. Again, to add this point, it needs to be intentional. A company needs to allow for it and needs to prepare that they will be given the opportunity to skill up, and prepare their competencies to take on whatever role is available in the organization.
Yeah, I just have to take it on another in another perspective, not from the employer but from the employee. Usually, that decision or the drop off and deciding to focus on child rearing happens in the mid to late 20s up to the early 30s, and I would, to be honest, that also I entertain those thoughts because right now my children are 1 and 5, and being at a certain level with this I mean, kind of late. Yeah, I had them a bit later in my career. So what I would advise women who took a break to focus on their young kids is to never stop learning. There are a lot of opportunities online virtually that you can do to improve yourself, that you can do simultaneously just to prep you, keep you up to speed, so that when you return and if you decide to join the workforce again, entering programs like what Ms. Campos said would not be so difficult, and you would be really more at ease and more confident in getting back at the saddle. So yes, that's my advice to the women. But it's okay if you decide to do that.
Yeah, and it's again, it's shared accountability. The individual needs to do her part, right? To sharpen the saw, sabi nga, sa 7 habits of highly effective people. You need to really sharpen your saw. And even if you didn't leave naman the organization, sharpening the saw needs to be constant, because at the end of the day, the disruption is just so much, and the work evolves also. We need to make sure we keep ourselves relevant. I think this is for all of us, women. We need to keep ourselves relevant, whether you're in the workforce or you exit. As what Adi said, we need to constantly really invest in ourselves and sharpen our saw.
I think in today's world where there's a war for talent, right? So if you're going to look for hire somebody, experience would be very relevant. I would though say that when looking at opportunities to go back to the workforce, I would encourage women not to necessarily just limit their opportunities that they're exploring to the field that they were in. You have competencies, and those competencies, those skills might actually open doors for you for another industry, another field. No, so you don't have to limit the chances that you're exploring to the old work that you used to do.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree with, maybe just one last point, Tiago, on the topic. I would agree with Miss Españo, because so for example, no, when I interview, and this is also for emphasis, experience, yes, is important, but I think at this point, as for me, when I interview, I put more weight and importance on learning agility. So experience is there, but again, I'm putting more importance on the transferable skills, no, on the and the learning agility. So I really ask what they do on their free time. If they say they're reading a book, I would really ask them, can you tell me what the book says, etc. What are you doing to really upskill? So it's very, very important to see that mindset is present, that the growth mindset is present. Again, because the work evolves. The work that we do now evolves. So in the BPM industry, for example, there's so much technology disruption that's happening. So we need to ensure that we keep ourselves relevant to understand that different technology so that we can, it can amplify the potential, but you need to be very comfortable with it. So it's very important to look for learning agility is what I can say also.
So before we end today's session, I'd love if we had enough time to invite each of our speakers to share some final words, maybe for our audience. So maybe we can start with Adi, and then Ai, and then Marivic.
Well, first of all, I just want to tell all the women out there, congratulations for making it the past 2 years in a pandemic. To say it has been difficult would be an understatement. But, the light at the end of the tunnel is here. We see it. We're slowly transitioning back. So great job for being both homemaker and professional and a working professional at home. So I would just like to end by saying, it's not over. We must continuously work hard. We have to remain resilient, and we need to empower each other, and especially empower the younger generation of women leaders, so that we can just keep the cycle of women leading in the workplace and really um, being being positive members of society. So there's still a lot to be done, but a lot has already been done, and we should celebrate that. And let's just keep empowering each other. So as we say in McDonald's, empowered with the letter M, and that's really what we stand for all the women in the McDonald's network in the Philippines. And that's also my message for everyone. Empower to empower others. Thank you, everyone, and it's been great.
Yeah, I love that, Adi. So empower to empower everyone because that's really true, right? Women empowerment needs to be a collective effort. It can't be just one person doing it. It needs to be collective. And I think just very brief, for the entire women, to be successful, we need to lift other women too, right? We need to be intentional in lifting other women and helping other women also succeed in life. And you know what? Women are actually, they will paint the future. I believe so. Women leaders can tackle any challenges head on. They can focus on, the things that are within their control and nurture that, and influence the things that are not controllable or uncontrollable, because those are there. It's not going to go away. But don't fear the unknown and don't fear the uncontrollable. You can influence that. Women leaders also have the ability to wear many hats and execute. This is, I think, a very, very, big trait of women. No? Women can balance the head and heart. No? Very smart mind and at the same time empathetic heart. So keep that because that's one trait of women that is actually really, really a differentiator. And again, I'll just go back to the values. Keep values and principles intact. That's actually your, keep your own set of non-negotiables because that's really going to take you far where you want to go.
Excellent. Well, on my part, I would like to say that businesses have a huge role in creating that environment where women leaders can thrive. In the Philippines, we do see that there are the female workers at the entry level is quite high, maybe more than 50%. But it is at the senior leadership role where we tend to lose women, notwithstanding that globally we are doing good. There's an opportunity for companies to really look at this strategically and come up with the best practices that we can, introduce and adopt for our employees so that they will feel that it is the right environment for them to grow, especially the women.
Well, I think that's a fantastic place to end today's discussion. So thank you once again to Marivic Españo, Ai Campos, and Adi Timbal Hernandez for your time and wonderful insights. It really was an absolute pleasure speaking with you all today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tiago.
Good afternoon,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you, Tiago. Nice
Bye.
to meet you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Ai and Miss Marivic. Been great.
Thank you.
And a quick thank you as well to my partner, who I ran all these questions by last night to make sure I was framing them properly to better champion the women's perspective. To quote her really quickly, behind every male ally is a community of women who've done the thankless, grueling work of educating and enlightening them. So thank you to her and everyone else doing that work. I'd also like to thank DNA Grant Thornton and McDonald's Philippines for making this discussion possible. A huge thank you as well to our partners, the British Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Management Association of the Philippines, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and our media partner, the Philippine Star. And of course, to everyone in our audience joining us online, wherever in the world you're joining us from, please join us again this Wednesday at 11 a.m. for a discussion on sustainable travel and tourism. You can follow Business World online to be updated on our webinars and other projects. Again, my name is Santiago Hernandez. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much. And I'll see you all again in the next session of Business World Insights. Good afternoon.